His name is Ivan Chernyakhovsky, a man whose life became a vivid, yet tragically cut short, symbol of courage and genius. At 28, he commanded a regiment. At 30, a division. And at 37, he led an entire front. The youngest front commander of the Great Patriotic War, he was a phenomenon whose star rose in the firmament of history as rapidly as it faded, leaving behind only a dazzling trail. What allowed him, a man from a simple family, to achieve such heights at such a young age? How was this unique commander formed, whose tactical decisions drew admiration even from the enemy? We will delve into his biography to uncover the secret of his incredible ascent and understand why his story is not just a page in a textbook, but a captivating drama worthy of our attention. His path is a series of trials, victories, and innovative ideas that changed the course of history. To understand the phenomenon of Ivan Danilovich Chernyakhovsky, we need to go back to its very beginning, to the point where the foundations of his character were laid, where the personality of the future commander was formed. This was the humble Ukrainian village of Oksanino, in the Cherkasy region, in the heart of right bank Ukraine. It was here, in the year 2009 AD, in the family of railway worker Daniil Chernyakhovsky and his wife Maria, that a boy was born who was destined to become one of the most brilliant military leaders of the Great Patriotic War. The Chernyakhovsky family was large, with 6 children, and they lived, like most peasant families of that time, very modestly. A wooden hut, the smell of black earth, endless fields, work from dawn till dusk, such was the daily life of little Vanya. But even in these difficult conditions, the parents tried to give their children everything possible. The father, Daniil Chernyakhovsky, was a hard-working and responsible man, and the mother, Maria, was the embodiment of kindness and wisdom. They instilled in their children a love for work, respect for elders, and a desire for knowledge. Vanya grew up to be an inquisitive and intelligent boy. Already in early childhood, he showed an extraordinary craving for learning. He eagerly absorbed everything he was told and gladly spent time with books, which were a great rarity in their rural area. In those years, when the world had not yet recovered from the First World War and revolutionary upheavals were just beginning to subside, life in the village was full of hardships. Hunger, disease, uncertainty, all this was part of their existence. And then, when Vanya was only 9 years old, a terrible grief befell the family. In 1918, his mother, Maria, passed away. And just 3 years later, in 1921, his father also died. A terrible typhus epidemic, which was then raging in many regions, took them both. Overnight, Vanya and his siblings became orphans. It was a blow that could have broken anyone, but not Ivan. The early loss of his parents, the need to survive and care for his younger siblings, hardened his character, making him extraordinarily resilient and purposeful. He learned early the value of life, the value of labor, and the value of responsibility. He had to grow up earlier than his peers. He realized that now he alone was responsible for his fate and the fate of his loved ones. After the death of his parents, Ivan, being the eldest son, took on some of the household chores. He worked alongside adults, helping relatives and neighbors to feed himself and his family. He was a shepherd, then a farmhand, and then, when he grew a little older, he got a job at a sugar factory. The hard physical labor that fell on his shoulders at such a young age did not break him, but only strengthened him. He learned to appreciate every piece of bread, every moment of rest. He understood that only perseverance and hard work could change life for the better. But even in this struggle for survival, Ivan did not forget his main passion, learning. He continued to educate himself, read everything he could get his hands on, and dreamed of a real education. His inquisitive mind, his thirst for knowledge, his extraordinary discipline, all this already then set him apart from his peers. He was not just a boy who early learned difficulties. He was a young man who already then understood that to achieve something significant, one must constantly develop and learn. These years, full of hardships and trials, became the very forge where the character of the future commander was forged. It was then, in a Ukrainian village, surrounded by simple people, that the qualities were formed that would later make him an outstanding commander. Resilience, responsibility, the ability to make decisions in difficult situations, and a deep understanding of human psychology. He saw life without embellishment, knew what the struggle for existence was, and this knowledge became an invaluable lesson that he would carry throughout his life. It was during this period, when the country was just beginning to recover from the Civil War and the young Soviet government was gaining strength, that Ivan Chernyakhovsky made a fateful decision that would forever change his life. In 1924, barely 18 years old, inspired by the ideas of a new world and a striving for justice, he joined the ranks of the Red Army. This was a step that for many young people of that time meant not just service, but an opportunity to rise above their origins, get an education, and become part of the new elite. But for Ivan, it was something more. It was a path to self-realization, to serving the motherland, to that very goal he had intuitively felt since childhood. His first steps in his military career were associated with artillery. In the same 1924, he entered the Kiev Artillery School, one of the most prestigious military educational institutions of that time. It was a serious challenge. Training required not only physical endurance but also a sharp mind, the ability to analyze and make quick decisions. And Ivan, with his thirst for knowledge and incredible determination, showed his best side. He studied selflessly, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. His teachers noted not only his academic success, but also his natural inclination for military affairs. He quickly mastered tactics, ballistics, and the design of artillery systems. He didn't just memorize material. He understood its essence, saw interconnections, and foresaw the development of events. His analytical mind, developed in childhood when he observed life and labor, now found its application in military science. During his studies at the Kiev Artillery School, Ivan Chernyakhovsky demonstrated not only brilliant academic success, but also leadership qualities. He knew how to unite people around him, inspire them by his example, and lead them. These qualities, coupled with his professionalism, did not go unnoticed by the command. After graduating from the school in 1928, he was offered to continue his service. And he, of course, agreed. His rapid professional growth was due to several factors. Firstly, it was, undoubtedly, his personal qualities: a sharp mind, phenomenal memory, determination, diligence, and incredible responsibility. He never rested on his laurels, always striving for more, for perfection. Secondly, it was his natural talent for military affairs. He possessed intuition, the ability to see the whole picture of a battle and to anticipate enemy actions. He thought strategically, even as a young officer. Thirdly, it was an era when the young Red Army was actively developing, in need of new, talented personnel. The system encouraged initiative, courage, and professionalism, and Ivan Chernyakhovsky, undoubtedly, was one such cadre. He was a representative of that generation that was building a new country, and his energy, his faith in a bright future, were the driving force of his career. His first successes in military affairs were just the beginning of a long journey. He quickly moved up the career ladder, each time confirming his competence and leadership qualities. He was not just an executor, he was a thinker, an innovator, a man who was not afraid to make unconventional decisions. The factors contributing to his advancement were complex. On the one hand, these were objective historical conditions. On the other, his unique personality. He was ready for challenges, ready for responsibility, ready to lead people. His path in the Red Army was just beginning, but even then, it was clear that we had before us not just a capable officer, but a future commander destined to play an outstanding role in history. After graduating from the Kiev Artillery School, Ivan Chernyakhovsky did not rest on his laurels. His thirst for knowledge, his desire for perfection were insatiable. He understood that to become a true military professional, one must constantly learn, master new technologies and new tactics. And so, in 1930, he entered the Military Technical Academy in Leningrad. This was one of the country's leading military educational institutions, a forge of engineering personnel for the Red Army. Here, within the academy's walls, Chernyakhovsky immersed himself in the world of military science, studying not only artillery, but also other branches of service, their interaction, and their potential. He eagerly mastered the fundamentals of mechanics, electrical engineering, and materials science. His inquisitive mind and his analytical ability allowed him to quickly grasp complex concepts and apply them in practice. He didn't just memorize, he thought. He sought new solutions. He questioned established dogmas. He understood that the future of war lay in technology, speed, and maneuver. It was here, in Leningrad, that the formation of his unique tactical style began. But the real breakthrough in his education came with his enrollment in the Academy of Motorization and Mechanization of the Red Army, to which he transferred in 1934. This was a time when the Red Army was actively developing its tank forces, recognizing their enormous potential in future conflicts. Chernyakhovsky, with his sharp mind and foresight, immediately realized that the future belonged to tanks. He saw in them not just steel machines, but a powerful tool for creating breakthroughs, for rapid maneuvers, for encircling the enemy. He literally fell in love with these formidable machines, studying their design, their tactical and technical characteristics, and their combat application. He spent hours studying the experience of World War I, analyzing the actions of tanks on battlefields, identifying their strengths and weaknesses. He dreamed of creating a tactic that would allow for the most effective use of mechanized units' potential. And so, within the walls of the Academy of Motorization and Mechanization, he began to form his unique strategic thinking. He understood that tanks were not just a means of supporting infantry. They were an independent strike force capable of solving strategic tasks. He developed ideas of deep breakthroughs, rapid envelopment, and swift penetration into the enemy's rear. He was the first among his peers to begin thinking in terms of tank armies, capable of autonomous operations over long distances. His instructors, many of whom were experienced military leaders who had gone through the crucible of the Civil War, noted his extraordinary insight, his ability to see the battle picture several steps ahead. He didn't just learn, he created. He forged a new military doctrine based on speed, maneuver, and firepower. He was obsessed with the idea of maximizing the use of mechanized units and their interaction with aviation and artillery. He understood that success in a future war would depend on the ability to make quick decisions, on the skill of concentrating forces in decisive directions, on the readiness for unconventional actions. It was in these years, within the walls of the academies, that the Chernyakhovsky we know was formed, a commander capable of bold and decisive actions, of innovative tactical solutions, of deep strategic thinking. He didn't just master military science, he reinterpreted it, creating his own unique style of warfare. And this was just the beginning of his path to great victories. The year 1940 had arrived. The world paused in anticipation of a great war. Europe was already ablaze, and it was evident this monstrous fiery element would soon reach the borders of the Soviet Union. It was at this critical moment, when every officer counted, that Ivan Chernyakhovsky, already established as an outstanding strategist and tactician, took command of the 28th Tank Division, part of the 12th Mechanized Corps of the Baltic Special Military District. This was not just an appointment, it was an immense trust and colossal responsibility. A powerful combat unit, destined to become a shield on the western borders of the motherland, was now in his hands. Chernyakhovsky perfectly understood the full gravity of the situation. He saw how rapidly events were unfolding in the West, how swiftly the Wehrmacht was crushing one European army after another. And he knew there was no time to waste. Every day, every hour was worth its weight in gold. From the very first day of his command, he plunged headfirst into the work of strengthening the division's combat readiness. He was not a desk commander. He could be found at training grounds, in tank parks, at firing ranges. He personally inspected the condition of equipment, communicated with driver mechanics, gunners, and battalion commanders. He was interested in everything, from the technical condition of the tanks to the morale of every soldier. He demanded from his subordinates not just the execution of orders, but a deep understanding of their role in future battles. Under his leadership, the 28th Tank Division transformed into a true combat fist. Chernyakhovsky introduced strict but fair discipline. He insisted on constant exercises, simulating combat conditions as closely as possible. Tank crews practiced rapid marches, forced crossings of water obstacles, attacks on the move, and interaction with infantry and artillery. He paid special attention not only to tactics but also to strategy, training his officers to think broadly, anticipate enemy actions, and make unconventional decisions. His premonitions of the impending threat were not just intuition. They were based on a deep analysis of the international situation and intelligence data. He saw how Germany was building up military power, how it was concentrating troops near Soviet borders, and he understood that war was only a matter of time. Therefore, all his actions were aimed at preparing for the inevitable clash. He demanded maximum efficiency from his engineers and repair services so that every tank was ready for battle. He personally controlled the training process of new recruits, turning them into experienced fighters. He spared neither himself nor his subordinates, knowing that the price of error could be too high. Chernyakhovsky was one of the few commanders who did not succumb to the overconfident attitudes prevalent at the time. He did not believe in an easy victory and prepared for a difficult, bloody struggle. He understood that the German army was a powerful and well-trained adversary, and only maximum preparation, discipline, and skill could offer a chance of success. His preparatory measures included not only training and maintenance, he also paid great attention to camouflage, defense organization, and the creation of reserves. He was confident that the suddenness of an attack was the aggressor's main weapon, and therefore tried to minimize its consequences. He studied maps, analyzed possible directions of enemy strikes, and developed counterattack plans. He was ready to meet the enemy fully armed, despite all difficulties and resource shortages. His division, under his leadership, became a model of combat readiness and professionalism. He did not just command. He inspired his soldiers and officers, instilling in them faith in their abilities and in victory. And this was his main achievement in the pre-war period. June 22, 1941. Early morning. The sky over Brest had not yet had time to lighten when a fiery squall struck the western borders of the Soviet Union. This was not just an attack, it was a blow of monstrous force, designed to crush everything in its path. For Ivan Chernyakhovsky and his 28th Tank Division, stationed in the Baltic Special Military District, the war began without warning. The suddenness of the aggression was overwhelming. Already in the first hours and days it became clear. The plan of lightning war, the Blitzkrieg, was working. German tank wedges, supported by aviation, broke through defenses, encircling entire armies. The Red Army, not fully mobilized, not having had time to deploy its forces, found itself in a most difficult situation. Months of retreat, chaos, and immense tension began. It was in these conditions, when other commanders lost their composure, that Chernyakhovsky displayed his outstanding qualities. His division, though it suffered heavy losses in the first days of fighting, was not broken. He managed to maintain the combat readiness of his units even in the face of continuous enemy attacks and the constant threat of encirclement. This was a result not only of his pre-war training, but also of his ability to make quick, unconventional decisions. He did not wait for orders from above, he acted based on the situation. His ability to assess the situation, anticipate enemy moves, and find weaknesses in its offensive was truly unique. In conditions of retreat, when it seemed that all was lost, Chernyakhovsky, as commander of the 28th Tank Division of the 12th Mechanized Corps, displayed astonishing resilience and composure. He prevented panic, maintained discipline, and the morale of his soldiers. His division participated in bloody battles on the northwestern front, retreating with heavy rearguard battles, but at the same time inflicting tangible damage on the advancing German units. In July 1941, in the area of the city of Shiaulia, Chernyakhovsky's division, despite the numerical superiority of the enemy, managed to carry out a successful counterattack. This local success, though it did not change the overall strategic picture, showed that even in conditions of total retreat, the Red Army was capable of striking the enemy. Under his leadership, the tankmen did not just retreat, they fought. They set up ambushes, launched sudden attacks on the enemy's flanks and rear, slowing its advance and inflicting losses. Chernyakhovsky skillfully used the terrain, organized mobile defenses, constantly changing positions and misleading the enemy. He was a master of maneuver, capable of withdrawing his units from under attack while maintaining their combat effectiveness. In August 1941, Chernyakhovsky's division, already reformed and having suffered significant losses, participated in the counter-offensive near Staraya Russa. Although this offensive did not lead to strategic successes, it became another testament to the fact that under skilled leadership, even weakened units can demonstrate courage and effectiveness. Here, Chernyakhovsky first applied the tactic of rapid concentration of forces on a narrow sector of the front, breaking through enemy defenses and developing the offensive in depth. These first tactical successes, achieved in conditions when the entire Red Army was experiencing one of the most difficult periods in its history, set him apart from other commanders. His ability to maintain troop control, uphold high morale, make unconventional decisions, and organize effective interaction between different branches of service, despite all difficulties, was highly appreciated by the command. He not only demonstrated personal courage, but also the ability to inspire his subordinates. He was always there where it was most difficult, on the most dangerous sectors of the front, alongside his soldiers. His authority among soldiers and officers was indisputable. In September 1941, when the remnants of his division were withdrawn for regrouping, Chernyakhovsky was appointed commander of the 246th Rifle Division, which fought on the Voronezh front. This appointment was a recognition of his merits and a testament to the trust of the high command. He proved that he was capable of commanding not only tank, but also rifle formations, and that his talent as a commander extended far beyond a single branch of service. The first months of the war, full of retreats and defeats, became a true trial by fire for Chernyakhovsky. He passed it with honor, proving himself to be an outstanding commander, capable of skillful leadership in crisis situations. These months hardened his character, honed his command skills, and prepared him for future, even more grandiose victories. 1942 arrived. The Red Army continued to wage the most arduous battles, but the panic and confusion that reigned in the first months of the war were no more. Retreat was replaced by the first victories, and the country began to believe in its own strength. It was at this turning point, when every talented commander was worth his weight in gold, that Ivan Chernyakhovsky's career began to rapidly gain momentum. His ability to make unconventional decisions and maintain the combat effectiveness of units in the most critical situations did not go unnoticed. After his 28th Tank Division was withdrawn for refitting, and he himself, as we recall, was appointed commander of the 246th Rifle Division. A new, even more responsible appointment awaited him. In June 1942, when the enemy was rushing towards the Volga and the Caucasus, Chernyakhovsky became commander of one of the most combat-ready units of the Red Army, the 180th Rifle Division. And just a month later, in July of the same year, he was appointed commander of the 61st Army of the Voronezh Front. This was an incredible career leap, from division commander to army commander in just a few months. At the age of 36, Ivan Chernyakhovsky headed a large operational formation, the strength of which could reach 100,000 people. This was not just a recognition of his military talent, it was a manifestation of immense trust on the part of the country's top leadership. The headquarters of the Supreme High Command, personally Joseph Stalin, closely followed young, promising commanders capable of turning the tide of the war, and Chernyakhovsky, by his actions in the first, most difficult months, proved that he was exactly such a commander. His impressive achievements in various sectors of the front were multifaceted. First of all, it was his ability to effectively manage large formations, which he demonstrated by commanding the 180th Rifle Division in defensive battles near Voronezh. Under his leadership, the division not only stopped the enemy's advance, but also inflicted significant losses on them. He skillfully used artillery, maneuvered reserves, and organized counterattacks, preventing the enemy from consolidating their positions on captured lines. But the real breakthrough occurred when he led the 61st Army. Here, Chernyakhovsky proved himself to be an outstanding organizer and strategist. He managed to restore the combat effectiveness of the army, which had suffered significant losses in previous battles, in the shortest possible time, and prepared it for offensive operations. He paid great attention to personnel training, unit cohesion, and the organization of interaction between different branches of service. Under his leadership, the 61st Army participated in the Voronezh-Kastornoy operation, during which Voronezh and other major settlements were liberated. This operation became one of the first successful offensive operations of the Red Army in 1943 and demonstrated Chernyakhovsky's ability to plan and execute large-scale military operations. He was one of those who understood that war requires not only courage, but also intellect, deep analysis, and the ability for strategic thinking. His orders were clear and concise, yet they gave local commanders enough freedom for initiative. He trusted his subordinates but also demanded their full commitment. The reasons for the supreme leadership's trust in the young general were obvious. Firstly, it was his phenomenal work capacity and dedication to the cause. He worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without knowing fatigue. Secondly, it was his ability to learn quickly and adapt to changing circumstances.
He was not afraid to take responsibility and make bold decisions, even if they went against established patterns. Thirdly, it was his innovative approach to warfare. He always sought new ways, new tactical techniques that would allow victory with the fewest losses. He was one of the first to actively use mobile groups for developing breakthroughs, who paid great attention to the engineering support of the offensive, who understood the importance of timely ammunition and food supply. The trust in him was so great that he was entrusted with the most complex and responsible tasks, and he always justified that trust. His rapid career growth was not an accident, but a natural result of his talent, his perseverance, and his boundless devotion to the motherland. And this was just the beginning of his great journey. The year 1943 arrived. The Red Army, strengthened in the crucible of battles, was transitioning from defense to decisive offensive operations. It was during this period that the military talent of Ivan Chernyakhovsky unfolded in all its glory when he took command of the 60th Army. This army, formed on the basis of the 3rd Reserve Army, was a fresh formation, requiring skilled leadership and rapid preparation for active operations. And Chernyakhovsky, by that time already having established himself as one of the most promising generals, brilliantly coped with this task. His appointment as commander of the 60th Army was a logical continuation of his rapid career growth. Here, on the Voronezh front, he was not just to lead, but to make history, participating in some of the most significant battles of the Great Patriotic War. One of the first and most striking tests for the 60th Army under Chernyakhovsky's command was the liberation of Voronezh. The city, located in a strategically important direction, had been turned by the Germans into a powerful, fortified area. The battles for Voronezh were fierce, literally for every house, for every street. But Chernyakhovsky, with his innovative approach, did not act head-on. He developed and applied tactics that minimized losses among his soldiers while ensuring maximum damage to the enemy. He skillfully used bypasses and outflankings, creating a threat of encirclement for German garrisons. His artillery worked with pinpoint accuracy, suppressing enemy firing points, and the infantry, supported by tanks, advanced, methodically clearing the city. In late January 1943, Voronezh was liberated. This victory became not only an important strategic milestone, but also a moral triumph, showing that the Red Army was capable of taking heavily fortified cities. But the true apogee of his military art was the participation of the 60th Army in the Battle of Kursk. In the summer of 1943, one of the largest battles in human history unfolded on the Kursk Bulge. Chernyakhovsky, commanding the army on the northern face of the Kursk Bulge, demonstrated exceptional strategic thinking and tactical flexibility. His army, operating as part of the Central Front, played a key role in repelling the German offensive. He not only held the defense, he actively maneuvered, transferring reserves to the most dangerous sectors, organized counterattacks that exhausted and demoralized the enemy. His command style was characterized by the fact that he was always at the front, personally assessing the situation, communicating with unit commanders. This allowed him to make the most accurate and timely decisions. Chernyakhovsky paid special attention to innovative tactical techniques. He was one of the first to widely apply the tactic of mobile detachments, which, penetrating deep into the enemy's defense, disrupted its control, destroyed depots and headquarters. These detachments, consisting of tanks, motorized infantry, and sappers, acted boldly and decisively, creating panic in the enemy's rear. He also actively used artillery preparation, which literally swept away German positions before the infantry entered them. But most importantly, he always sought to minimize losses among his soldiers. He did not throw people into senseless attacks, but carefully planned each operation, using intelligence, camouflage, and surprise. His soldiers knew that their commander cared for them, and this greatly increased their morale. After the defensive phase of the Battle of Kursk, the 60th Army under Chernyakhovsky's command went on the offensive. During the Oriol strategic offensive operation, known as Operation Kutuzov, his troops successfully broke through heavily fortified German defenses and began a rapid advance. They liberated many settlements, inflicting heavy losses on the enemy. Then, during the Chernihiv-Pripyat operation, Chernyakhovsky's army forced the Desna and Dnieper, liberating cities and villages in left-bank Ukraine. These operations demonstrated his ability not only to defend, but also to organize deep offensive operations, with rapid development of success and effective interaction of all branches of the armed forces. He was able to see not only immediate goals, but also prospects, planning the army's actions several steps ahead. The assessment of his role in the largest operations of this period of the war is invaluable. Chernyakhovsky, as army commander, did not just carry out orders, he made his unique contribution to strategic planning. His proposals were often taken into account by the high command because they were based on deep analysis and foresight. He was the commander who was not afraid to take responsibility for bold decisions. And these decisions, as a rule, led to success. His command style, combining toughness and care for soldiers, innovation and pragmatism, made him one of the most effective military leaders of that time. He was a true commander-leader, capable of inspiring his subordinates to feats and leading them to victory even in the most difficult conditions. And this was just the beginning of his stellar path. After the triumphant battles of 43, when the 60th Army under his command liberated Voronezh and played a key role in the Battle of Kursk, Ivan Chernyakhovsky's military genius manifested itself in all its glory. His command style, even then differing from the generally accepted, was not just effective, it was innovative. Chernyakhovsky never feared thinking outside the box, seeking new solutions where others followed a template. It was this ability, this unique military signature, that made him one of the most outstanding commanders of that era. At the core of his tactical innovations lay a deep understanding of the nature of modern warfare. He was one of those who realized that the time of frontal attacks and slow positional battles was passing. The future belonged to speed, maneuver, and surprise. He saw tanks not merely as infantry support, but as a powerful striking fist, capable of breaking through enemy defenses and developing an offensive in depth. And he knew how to use this fist with maximum effectiveness. Chernyakhovsky always strived for deep interaction between various branches of the armed forces. For him, artillery, tanks, infantry, and aviation were not separate elements, but a single coordinated organism. He was a master of coordination, capable of making all these elements work like clockwork, reinforcing each other. He understood that the success of an operation depended not only on the force of the blow, but also on its synchronicity, on the ability of each unit to perform its task at the precisely appointed time and in the right place. He paid special attention to artillery. For Chernyakhovsky, artillery preparation was not just shelling before an attack, but a carefully planned operation to suppress enemy firing points, destroy their fortifications, and demoralize personnel. He was one of the first to widely apply the tactic of the quote, zero, where artillery fire moved ahead of advancing troops, literally clearing their path. He demanded pinpoint accuracy from his artillerymen and maximum concentration of fire on key breakthrough sectors. Under his leadership, artillery transformed from a simple means of support
into a powerful instrument of breakthrough and offensive development. But tanks played no less important a role in his tactics. Chernyakhovsky, being an artilleryman himself, perfectly understood the potential of mechanized formations. He actively used tank wedges to create breakthroughs, for swift outflanking and encirclements of the enemy. His tank units acted not as separate groups, but as a unified, dynamic force, capable of independent action in the enemy's rear. He taught his tank crews not to be afraid to break away from the main forces, to act boldly and decisively, creating panic and chaos in the enemy's ranks. He was a proponent of creating mobile groups consisting of tanks, motorized infantry, sappers, and artillery, which could quickly develop success, seize important lines and communication hubs. Another distinctive feature of his command style was the ability to quickly analyze the situation and make unconventional decisions. He was not afraid to take risks if he saw in it the key to success. In critical situations, he could instantly change the plan of operation, redeploy reserves, find a weak point in the enemy's defense, and strike there. His decisions often seemed unexpected to the enemy, which provided the effect of surprise. He was a master of camouflage and disinformation, skillfully concealing his true intentions and misleading the enemy. He also paid great attention to intelligence, understanding that without accurate information about the enemy, it was impossible to plan operations effectively. He demanded maximum activity from his scouts and deep penetration into the enemy's rear. The information received was carefully analyzed, and based on it, decisions were made that often anticipated the enemy's actions. Chernyakhovsky was one of those who understood that any, even the most brilliant tactic, would not bring success without high morale and professionalism of the personnel. He was always close to his soldiers and officers, personally communicated with them, delved into their problems, and maintained their fighting spirit. He demanded from his commanders not only the execution of orders, but also the display of initiative, ingenuity, and the ability to act independently in a changing environment. He created an atmosphere of trust and mutual assistance, which allowed his troops to achieve success even in the most difficult conditions. His command signature is a combination of deep strategic thinking, tactical flexibility, the ability to effectively use all branches of the armed forces, and care for people. He did not just command, he inspired, he led, showing a personal example of courage and determination. His innovative approaches to warfare laid the foundation for many future victories of the Red Army. And it is these qualities that will become especially valuable in the future, when he will have to lead an entire front and participate in one of the most grandiose operations of the Great Patriotic War. The year 1944 arrived. The war continued, but the initiative had already definitively shifted to the Red Army. Strategic successes achieved in 1943 paved the way for the liberation of occupied territories and the expulsion of the enemy beyond the borders of the Soviet Union. It was during this period when not just talented commanders, but true military leaders, capable of thinking on a grand scale and making bold decisions, were needed, that Ivan Chernyakhovsky stepped onto the stage. At just 37 years old, he was appointed commander of the Western Front. This was an unprecedented event for the entire Red Army. 37 years old, an age at which many officers only reached the rank of colonel. And here, a front commander, a formation numbering hundreds of thousands of people and thousands of units of equipment. This was not just a promotion. It was colossal trust, and the realization that before us was a military genius capable of changing the course of the war. The reaction of the military elite to this appointment was mixed. On the one hand, many experienced generals, who had been through the crucible of the First World War and the Civil War,
found it difficult to accept the appointment of such a young man to such a high post. In their view, a front commander should have been a seasoned military leader, a gray-haired general whose wisdom was honed by years of battles. And here, the young, energetic, but not yet gray-haired Chernyakhovsky. On the other hand, those who knew Chernyakhovsky personally, who had seen him in action, who had witnessed his military talent in the Battle of Voronezh and at the Kursk Bulge, understood that this appointment was not patronage, but a well-deserved recognition of his exceptional abilities. They saw in him not only the energy of youth, but also maturity of thought, strategic vision, and the ability to make decisions in the most difficult conditions. Joseph Stalin himself, known for his demanding attitude towards personnel, personally approved this appointment, seeing in Chernyakhovsky one of those who could ensure decisive victories in the final stage of the war. The general's first steps in the high post of commander of the Western Front were aimed at a detailed study of the situation. He did not immediately rush into battle, but thoughtfully and methodically analyzed the alignment of forces, enemy plans, and the state of his troops. He held meetings with army, corps, and division commanders, personally visited the front line to assess the situation on the ground. His managerial decisions were characterized by rationality and foresight. He understood that success required not only firepower, but also clear organization, coordinated actions, and high discipline. He paid great attention to logistics, troop supply, and medical support. He demanded from his headquarters not just the execution of orders, but a deep understanding of strategic goals and tactical objectives. Chernyakhovsky's relations with his subordinates were built on a combination of demandingness and deep respect. He did not tolerate incompetence and negligence, but was always ready to listen to the opinions of his commanders, even if they differed from his own. He knew how to inspire people, instill confidence in them, and lead them. His authority among soldiers and officers was indisputable. They saw in him not just a commander, but a leader who would not abandon them in difficult times, who cared for them, and who would lead them to victory. He was always accessible to his subordinates, open to dialogue, ready to help solve any problems. He was not afraid to take responsibility for failures, but also did not claim all the laurels of victory, always noting the merits of his commanders and fighters. In April 1944, the Western Front was renamed the Third Belarusian Front. This was not just a change of name, it was a symbol of a new stage of the war, a stage of decisive offensive to the West. And at the head of this front stood the youngest commander, Ivan Chernyakhovsky, who was to play one of the key roles in the liberation of Belarus and the defeat of the enemy on his own territory. He was ready for this challenge, ready to write new, vivid pages in the history of the Great Patriotic War. The year 1944 arrived. June. On the Eastern Front, a lull before the storm. The German command, confident in the strength of its defenses in Belarus, was redeploying troops to the west, anticipating the Allied landing in Normandy. But the Soviet Supreme High Command was preparing its response. Operation Bagration, a tactical genius whose scale was unprecedented in world history. And at the center of this grand chess game was Ivan Chernyakhovsky, commander of the Third Belarusian Front. His role in the planning and execution of this operation was not just key, it was decisive. Chernyakhovsky, being the youngest front commander, brought a fresh, innovative perspective to the development of the operation plan. He was not afraid to deviate from established patterns, proposing bold, sometimes risky solutions that ultimately led to stunning success. For example, it was he who insisted on the use of a double envelopment tactic, where the front's strike groups were not only to break through enemy defenses, but also to swiftly bypass its flanks, creating cauldrons. This required not only a powerful blow, but also unprecedented coordination of actions, speed, and maneuverability. The concept of organolterra is truly grandiose. Soviet troops were to deliver powerful blows to the flanks of the German Army Group Center, encircle and destroy its main forces. Chernyakhovsky's Third Belarusian Front was tasked with breaking through the German defenses in the Vitebsk and Orsha directions, and then developing a rapid offensive reaching Minsk. This was a sector of the front where the Germans had created deeply echeloned defenses, saturated with pillboxes, bunkers, minefields, and anti-tank ditches. It seemed impossible to breach it. But Chernyakhovsky thought otherwise. He developed a plan based on surprise and the massive use of artillery and tanks. He understood that frontal attacks would lead to enormous losses and sought unconventional paths. Preparations for the operation were carried out in conditions of strict secrecy. Chernyakhovsky personally controlled every stage, from camouflaging troop redeployments to preparing assault groups. He demanded maximum ingenuity from his engineers in creating means to overcome minefields and fortifications. He paid enormous attention to personnel training, conducting exercises that were as close as possible to combat conditions. On June 23, 1944, Operation Bagration began. The blow of the Third Belarusian Front was devastating. After a powerful artillery preparation that literally swept away the first line of German defense, tank and mechanized formations rushed into the breach. Chernyakhovsky, unlike many of his colleagues, preferred to be at the forefront, personally controlling the course of the offensive. He could be found in a tank, on an armored vehicle, or even on foot, next to the soldiers, in the hottest spots. He was not just a commander. He was a leader who inspired by his example. A key moment of the offensive was the liberation of Vitebsk. The city, turned into a fortress by the Germans, was encircled by Chernyakhovsky's troops. The Germans resisted desperately, but the swiftness and onslaught of the Soviet troops were such that, already on June 27th, Vitebsk was taken. 5 Wehrmacht divisions were encircled, and more than 38,000 soldiers and officers were destroyed or captured. This was the first major quote of Operation Bagration, and it became possible thanks to Chernyakhovsky's masterful leadership. Then followed a breakthrough in the Orsha direction. Here, Chernyakhovsky applied a tactic that became a textbook example. He used the marshy terrain, which the Germans considered impassable for tanks, to bypass their main fortifications. The front's sappers did a colossal job, laying roads through the swamps, and the tank corps, unexpectedly for the enemy, moved into their rear. This led to the collapse of the entire German defense in this sector. As a result of the rapid offensive, the troops of the Third Belarusian Front broke into Minsk on July 3, 1944, liberating the capital of Belarus. On the same day, east of Minsk, a gigantic Quote 2 was closed, in which the main forces of the German Fourth Army found themselves. More than 105,000 German soldiers and officers were destroyed or captured. This became one of the largest defeats of the Wehrmacht throughout the war. The achievements of the Third Belarusian Front in Operation Bagration were stunning. In a few weeks of the offensive, Chernyakhovsky's troops advanced hundreds of kilometers, liberated vast territories of Belarus, and inflicted colossal damage on the German Army Group Center. Chernyakhovsky's front became one of the main fists that paved the way to the west. His masterful leadership of troops, his ability to combine artillery fire with tank breakthroughs, his capacity for unconventional solutions, and his constant presence at the front line, all this made his name a legend. For the brilliant execution of Operation Bagration, Ivan Chernyakhovsky was awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. This was not just a victory, it was a triumph of military art that showed the whole world that the Red Army was capable not only of defending, but also of attacking, crushing the enemy. And this triumph was inseparable from the name of the youngest front commander, Ivan Chernyakhovsky, who now rushed towards new goals. After the triumphant liberation of Belarus, when the troops of the Third Belarusian Front under the command of Ivan Chernyakhovsky delivered a crushing blow to Army Group Center, new, even more ambitious prospects opened up before the young commander. The year 1945 had arrived, and the war was approaching its logical conclusion. Ahead lay East Prussia, the citadel of German militarism, the lair of the beast, as Soviet soldiers called it. It was here, on the last frontiers of the Reich, that one of the bloodiest and most ferocious battles of the Great Patriotic War was destined to unfold. The East Prussian operation, conceived by the Stavka of the Supreme High Command, had strategic significance. Its goal was not only the destruction of a large grouping of German troops, but also the final withdrawal of Germany from the war. Chernyakhovsky, as commander of the Third Belarusian Front, was assigned a key role in this operation. His troops were to break through the deeply echeloned enemy defense, saturated with powerful fortifications, and reach Königsberg, the capital of East Prussia. The planning of this operation was unprecedented in its complexity. The Germans, understanding the entire importance of East Prussia, turned it into an impregnable fortress. Large forces of the Wehrmacht were concentrated here, including elite tank and infantry divisions. The defense consisted of several lines, each of which was an entire system of pillboxes, bunkers, anti-tank ditches, minefields, and wire obstacles. Every settlement was turned into a strong point, every village into a small fort. Chernyakhovsky, with his analytical mind, perfectly understood that frontal attacks here would lead to colossal losses. He sought unconventional solutions capable of breaking the enemy's will and breaking through their defense with the fewest casualties for his troops. He held dozens of meetings with his staff, with Army and Corps commanders, carefully studying maps, intelligence data, aerial photographs. He personally went to the front line to assess the terrain, the location of German fortifications, and opportunities for maneuver. He was obsessed with the idea of finding a weak spot in the enemy's defense to deliver a crushing blow there. In early January 1945, the offensive began. The bomb of the Third Belarusian Front fell on the most fortified section of the German defense. The first days of the operation were extremely difficult. The Germans resisted with the desperation of the doomed, using every bunker, every trench, every meter of land. Progress was slow. Every kilometer was achieved with great difficulty. But Chernyakhovsky did not falter. He skillfully used artillery, which literally plowed through German positions. Heavy guns, howitzers, rocket mortars, everything was put into action to suppress enemy firing points. He paid special attention to the engineering support of the offensive. Front sappers, under continuous enemy fire, cleared passages in minefields, built crossings over rivers and canals, and cleared blockages. Their heroic work allowed tanks and infantry to advance, overcoming the most difficult obstacles. Chernyakhovsky constantly maneuvered reserves, transferring them to the most difficult sections, strengthening strike groups. He was a master of operational camouflage, skillfully concealing his true intentions, and shredded the enemy regarding the direction of the main attack. This allowed him to achieve the effect of surprise, even when the Germans were ready for an offensive. He also actively used aviation, which delivered massive strikes against German positions, airfields, and communications. Attack aircraft worked in close cooperation with ground forces, suppressing firing points and destroying enemy equipment.
In the face of fierce enemy resistance, Chernyakhovsky made bold and risky strategic decisions. He was not afraid to deviate from patterns if he saw this as the key to success. For example, he decided to force rivers and canals, which the Germans considered insurmountable, using amphibious tanks and landing groups. This allowed him to bypass the most fortified sections of the defense and get behind enemy lines. He was one of the first to widely apply the tactic of mobile groups, which, breaking deep into the defense, disrupted enemy command, destroyed headquarters and warehouses, and sowed panic. His main strategy was not a direct frontal collision, but the creation of a threat of encirclement. He sought not just to push back the Germans, but to destroy their groupings, cut off their retreat routes, and deprive them of the ability to maneuver. This required not only a powerful blow, but also high coordination of actions, speed, and maneuverability. Despite all the difficulties, the troops of the Third Belarusian Front slowly but surely advanced, overcoming enemy resistance. They liberated one settlement after another, broke through one defensive line after another. Each victory came at the cost of enormous effort, but each step brought the Red Army closer to its ultimate goal, Königsberg. Chernyakhovsky, as always, was at the forefront, personally controlling the course of the operation. He communicated with soldiers, officers, and unit commanders, supporting their morale and giving valuable instructions. His presence at the front inspired the fighters, instilling in them confidence in victory. He was not just a commander, he was a leader who led his soldiers to victory despite all difficulties. His strategic decisions, made in the face of fierce enemy resistance, allowed the German defense to be broken and created the prerequisites for the further development of the offensive. The East Prussian operation became one of the brightest examples of Ivan Chernyakhovsky's military art. But, unfortunately, it also became his last battle. That fateful day arrived. February 18th, 1945. The East Prussian operation was in full swing. The troops of the Third Belarusian Front, under the command of Ivan Chernyakhovsky, were slowly but surely advancing towards Königsberg. The enemy resisted desperately, clinging to every meter of land, turning every settlement into a fortress. General Chernyakhovsky, as always, was on the front line. He always considered it his duty to be where the fate of the battle was being decided, where his presence could inspire soldiers and officers. That morning was frosty and overcast. The gray sky seemed to foreshadow tragedy. Chernyakhovsky, along with a small group of officers, was heading to the area of the town of Melzak, now Pieniężno, Poland, where the command post of the 303rd Rifle Division was located. There, he planned to clarify the situation and personally issue orders for the further development of the offensive. The road was difficult, broken by tank tracks and truck wheels. Snow mixed with mud made movement difficult. On the way to Melzak was a small forest that had recently been recaptured from the Germans. However, as often happens in war, the enemy, retreating, left behind gifts, isolated mortars and artillery pieces that conducted harassing fire on Soviet positions and roads. The commander's vehicle, a regular army SUV, was moving along the road that ran alongside this forest. Chernyakhovsky, as usual, was focused, carefully listening to officers' reports and studying maps. Suddenly, around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a characteristic whistle sounded above the car, the sound of an approaching shell. It was a single shot from a German gun. The shell exploded a few meters from the commander's car. Shrapnel flew in all directions. One large, sharp piece, with terrifying force, flew into the open aperture of the car. It struck General Chernyakhovsky in the back, directly under the shoulder blade.
a fatal wound. The driver braked sharply. The officers traveling with the general rushed to him. Chernyakhovsky was still alive, but his condition was extremely grave. He was breathing heavily, trying to say something, but the words caught in his throat. His eyes, always so lively and insightful, slowly faded. There was no time to save him. Despite all the efforts of the doctors who arrived at the scene a few minutes later, General Chernyakhovsky's life ended. He was only 38 years old. He became the youngest front commander to fall in battle for the motherland. Chernyakhovsky's death was a shock to the entire front. The news spread through the troops like lightning. The loss of such a talented and beloved commander was irreparable. The morale of the troops, which had been on the rise, was undermined. Many could not believe what had happened. For soldiers and officers, Chernyakhovsky was not just a commander. He was a symbol of victory, a leader who always led them forward. His death was perceived as a personal tragedy. This event had a serious impact on the course of military operations. The East Prussian operation, already difficult and bloody, became even harder. Although Marshal Vasilevsky promptly took command of the front, the pace of the offensive slowed somewhat. The loss of such an experienced and decisive commander, capable of making unconventional decisions and inspiring troops, could not pass without a trace. Achieving the set goals, encircling and destroying the Königsberg enemy group, now required even greater efforts and sacrifices. But despite the pain of loss, the troops of the Third Belarusian Front did not waver. They vowed to avenge their commander and continue his work. Chernyakhovsky's death only strengthened their resolve to bring the war to a victorious end. His name became the banner under which they went into battle to the final assault on Königsberg. February 18, 1945, became a day of mourning for the entire Third Belarusian Front. General Chernyakhovsky, their young and talented commander, fell a brave death. It seemed that this loss could break the spirit of the fighters, but instead, it only strengthened their resolve. Soldiers and officers swore to avenge their commander and see his work through to the end. The East Prussian operation, initiated under Chernyakhovsky's leadership, had to be completed. And the main symbol of this victory, the enemy's last bastion, remained Königsberg, a city considered impregnable for centuries. After Chernyakhovsky's death, Marshal of the Soviet Union Alexander Mikhailovich Vasilevsky took command of the Third Belarusian Front. He was an experienced and wise commander, but he faced a challenging task, not only to lead the troops but also to preserve the momentum, the strategic thought that his predecessor had laid down. And Vasilevsky, perfectly understanding the scale of the loss, did everything to ensure that Chernyakhovsky's strategic plans were fully implemented. For it was he, Ivan Danilovich, who, even at the planning stage of the East Prussian operation, developed a detailed plan for the assault on Königsberg. He foresaw that the Germans would hold on to the city to the last, turning it into a powerful fortress with 3 rings of defense, numerous forts, and underground communications. And therefore, he insisted on meticulous preparation, on creating a powerful strike force capable of breaking through this defense. Preparations for the assault on Königsberg began long before Chernyakhovsky's death. At his direction, the front's engineering troops carried out colossal work to study the city's fortifications. Models and mock-ups were created on which the actions of assault groups were practiced. Special attention was paid to artillery preparation. Chernyakhovsky demanded concentrating an unprecedented number of guns and mortars in the Königsberg area, including heavy, high-power artillery. He understood that without overwhelming fire superiority, the assault would be too costly. This preliminary preparation, carried out under the general's leadership, became the foundation of the future victory. It was thanks to his foresight that the front's troops were ready for an assault of such magnitude. Soldiers and officers knew what awaited them. They were trained to operate in urban combat conditions, overcome fortifications, and destroy pillboxes. On April 4, 1945, after intense artillery preparation, the assault on Königsberg began. It was a battle to the death. The Germans, surrounded and cut off from the main forces, resisted with fanatical stubbornness. Every house, every street became an arena for bloody battles. But the Soviet troops, driven by a thirst for revenge for their fallen commander and the desire for ultimate victory, pushed forward. Marshal Vasilevsky, implementing Chernyakhovsky's strategic plans, skillfully commanded the troops. He used the tactic of assault groups, which, supported by artillery and tanks, methodically cleared the city of the enemy. Special attention was paid to the interaction of different branches of service. Sappers cleared the way, infantry cleared buildings, tanks suppressed firing points, and aviation struck the most fortified areas. Already on April 9, 1945, after 5 days of fierce fighting, Königsberg fell. The red banner was raised over the city. This was not just a victory. It was a triumph made possible by the genius of Ivan Chernyakhovsky. His strategic plans, his foresight, his meticulous preparation, all played a decisive role in the success of the operation. Chernyakhovsky's successors, continuing his work, brought what he started to completion. The assault on Königsberg became a vivid confirmation of the correctness of his tactical and strategic decisions. The very fact that Königsberg, considered impregnable, was taken in such a short time and with relatively small forces is direct evidence of the effectiveness of the methods developed by the young commander. The victory at Königsberg was not only an important military achievement, but also a symbolic act of retribution. It became the last tribute to the memory of Ivan Chernyakhovsky, a brilliant commander whose life was tragically cut short, but whose legacy continued to live on in the victories of the Red Army. His name is inscribed in golden letters in the history of the Great Patriotic War. Ivan Danilovich Chernyakhovsky, the youngest front commander, a man whose life was tragically cut short, but whose legacy continues to live on in our hearts and memory. After his death, posthumous recognition of his merits was not long in coming. The country mourned its young commander, and his name was immortalized in the names of cities, streets, and monuments. In 1946, as a sign of deep respect for his feat and contribution to victory, the city of Insterburg in East Prussia, one of the key cities liberated by his troops, was renamed Chernyakhovsk. This was not just a geographical renaming. It was a symbol, a tribute to a man who gave his life for the liberation of this land. And today, walking through the streets of this city, one feels the invisible presence of his spirit, the spirit of a victor. But not only city names immortalized his name. Throughout the country, from Kaliningrad to Kiev, monuments to General Chernyakhovsky were erected. Bronze and stone sculptures depicting him in his commander's uniform with a penetrating gaze directed into the distance. These monuments are not just sculptures, they are points of attraction for those who wish to pay tribute to the great commander. Every year, on the day of his death, February 18th, flowers are brought to these monuments, candles are lit, remembering his feat. One of the most famous was the monument in Vilnius, the capital of the then Lithuanian SSR. It was erected in 1951 and became a symbol of the liberation of the Baltic states from fascist invaders. For many years, it was a central place for commemorative events, until, unfortunately, in 1991, amidst political changes, it was dismantled and moved to Voronezh, a city in whose liberation Chernyakhovsky played one of the key roles. Today, this monument stands in Voronezh, reminding us of the connection of history and that the memory of heroes cannot be erased. The historical significance of Ivan Chernyakhovsky's military art is difficult to overestimate. He was the brightest representative of a galaxy of young, talented Soviet military leaders who grew up during the war years and made an enormous contribution to victory. He was distinguished by an innovative approach to warfare, the ability to combine deep strategic thinking with tactical flexibility, the capacity for unconventional solutions, and constant presence in the most dangerous sectors of the front. He was a master of maneuver, deep breakthroughs, swift envelopments, and encirclements. His tactics, based on the massive use of artillery and tanks, on the close interaction of all branches of service, allowed him to achieve success with minimal losses for his troops. He did not send people into senseless attacks, but meticulously planned each operation, using intelligence, camouflage, and surprise. His contribution to the final victory was colossal. Under his command, troops liberated Voronezh, played a key role in the Battle of Kursk, brilliantly carried out Operation Bagration, liberating Belarus, and began the East Prussian operation, paving the way to Königsberg. He was one of those who broke the back of the German war machine, who brought the long-awaited victory. The phenomenon of the young General Chernyakhovsky is not only his age at which he reached such heights, it is the phenomenon of his personality, his mind, his will, his boundless devotion to the motherland. He was not just an executor of orders, he was a creator of victory, a man who could think big, foresee the development of events, and make bold, sometimes risky decisions. He was a leader who inspired his soldiers, who led them, who instilled in them faith in victory. His place in the history of the Great Patriotic War is one of the most honorable. He stands alongside such great commanders as Zhukov, Rokossovsky, Vasilevsky. He was one of those who won this war, who saved the world from fascism. His life, bright and short, became a symbol of courage, heroism, and self-sacrifice. And today, many decades later, his name continues to sound as a call to memory, to respect those who gave their lives for our freedom. He did not live to see victory by just a few months, but his contribution to it was invaluable. He died fighting for the motherland, and his feat will forever remain in our hearts. Ivan Chernyakhovsky, eternal memory and eternal glory to the hero.